Go. As our typical tradition is at City Council, we typically open in prayer and the pledge. And so Councilman Randy Haverfield has offered to open us in prayer, lead us in the pledge.
Father, we thank you for this evening, for all the wonderful people that showed up tonight to be a part of this meeting. I pray for the counsel and the wisdom that you impart upon us, that you will give us clarity of thought and help us to seek your guidance in what we do and say. Pray for the mayor as she leads this meeting and the legal counsel that's represented here tonight as well. But we do thank you for all that you've done for our community and for the days ahead. We just pray that there'll be bright days and the growth will be controlled and we'll be smart about the decisions we make. And we give you praise for all this. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. So I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Haverfield. Okay, as we get started this evening, we do have one proposed amendment to the agenda, and that is to include the updated alcohol renewal list. Other than that, I'm not aware of any other amendments to the agenda. Oh, I forgot roll call. Let's start with roll call.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Bruner?
Here.
Mucci?
Here.
Levi?
Present.
Haverfield?
Here.
And Bauer?
Here.
Thank you. Okay, so back to proposed amendments to the agenda. I think we have one, which is the updated alcohol renewal list. Is the council aware of any other proposed amendments to the agenda? Seeing none, I would just ask that we approve the agenda as it's stated. There is no consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
And roll call.
Rodriguez? Yes. Bruner?
Yes.
Mucci? Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. And Haverfield?
Yes.
Thank you. We actually have a proclamation this evening, and it's because the date is actually this coming weekend, or this week. And so this is for the Buddy Poppies. And the proclamation is, whereas the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Affairs of the United States has been officially recognized and endorsed by governmental leaders since 1922. And whereas VFW Buddy Poppies are assembled by disabled veterans, and the proceeds of this worthy fundraising campaign are used exclusively for the benefit of disabled and veterans in need and the widows and orphans of deceased veterans. Whereas the basic purpose of the annual distribution of Buddy Poppies by the Veterans of Foreign Affairs is eloquently reflected in the desire to honor the dead by helping the living. And whereas I urge the citizens of this community to recognize the merits of this cause and support their efforts to recognize the sacrifices of our honored dead. I also urge all patriotic citizens to wear a Buddy Poppy as mute evidence of their gratitude to the men and women of this country who have risked their lives in defense of the freedoms we continue to enjoy as American citizens. Now, therefore, I, Debbie Kling, Mayor of the City of Nampa, Idaho, do hereby proclaim the days of May 27, 28, and 29 as VFW Buddy Poppy Days. And I encourage you to visit the VFW and visit them at Albertsons, where they will be set up on May 27th, 28th, and 29th. And I believe we have someone here today, and I'm not sure. There we go. I didn't see you. Thank you so much. How are you tonight?
Very good.
Good.
I got a poppy for each of you. Yes, we do the Buddy Poppies. Last year, it was the COVID, and we couldn't get out anywhere, and it was sad. But this year, we're going to get with it and go with it, and our money does stay in our local post. We do send some money to the Children's VFW National Home Children's Foundation. We do send some money to them because of the families of the veterans that was overseas. But I love doing the poppies. I've done it for years, and I think it's just really great. So I take all your money, too.
So you're at both Albertsons, is that right?
No, it's just the
on-
one. Just the
Okay.
one on Greenhurst and 12th.
12th. Okay, so we should
Greenhurst
stop
and
by
12th, yeah.
and donate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a donation only, but you can have a poppy. I'll give you guys a poppy and then,
Then we need to stop by.
yes,
Donate.
thank
you.
I'll take your money right now, yeah. You want to give me some?
Councilman Haverfield, will you cover all of us, please?
I just didn't bring my,
So I don't have my billfold, you can cover us all.
and thank you so much.
Are you going to be at the memorial event too, on 31st Memorial Day out there? Kohler Lawn.
Fuller Lawn Cemetery has a memorial.
Not usually they're out there, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, part of it used to be the veterans, the American Legion, and the DEA used to rotate.
I see.
I don't take care of that part, I just do my poppy.
Okay.
Well, as we're doing the poppies, I would invite everyone to join us on Monday, Memorial Day, out at Kohler Lawn Cemetery for our Memorial Day service. I believe it starts at 10 a.m., and it's pretty easy to find. It's a special day to honor those that have sacrificed their lives for this country. So I'd invite you all to attend.
These poppies are quick. When I first started doing the Betty Poppy drive, they were plastic, and they were really cool. I have a display with them, and I've had them since, well, I've been doing it since 1982, and keep saving it, so it's like, sir, wants one, can have one.
Ron, you can give her some money and keep
Oh,
that one.
lost another one. You can have that one, sir. Yes, whatever you want to give.
Don't forget that Kenny Roten's back there also, so.
Thank
Okay.
you very much. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Who else wants a poppy?
Well, I'll let you guys continue to go on the poppies, and we're going to go ahead and step into our first piece of business this evening. So, new business, action item 2.1, is a determination on the recommendation of the Alcohol Review Committee to revoke the beer and wine liquor license held by Agave Cantina. As we get started this evening, I would like to defer to legal to ask if you have any opening comments for our council as we walk through this evening. Do you have anything you would like to begin with?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for a brief reminder on the procedure, the process utilized today is the same as was utilized during the appeal that you've heard prior. The applicant has been provided written notice of today's hearing that outlines the process, the 15 minutes for the Alcohol Review Committee recommendation report, and 15 minutes for the applicant to provide their evidence. The decision of the council is to either accept the recommendation of revocation or to remand the matter back to the Alcohol Review Committee to reassess and make a different determination.
Okay. And did we start with the applicant first and then the Alcohol Review Committee?
Madam Mayor, we start with the committee.
The committee
The
first.
Alcohol Review Committee, correct, to explain the basis for the recommendation, utilizing existing Nampa City Code, followed by the applicant.
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think we're ready to go. And so there we go. Hi, Jamie. So I think Jamie Burns is going to provide a report. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Got my notes here. So first of all, I want to thank the mayor and council for allowing me to appear tonight regarding the revocation hearing of the Agave Cantina. I know council and the mayor is aware of who I am, but those in attendance tonight that will be participating in this hearing, my name is Jamie Burns. I'm a police lieutenant with the Napa Police Department. and the chair of the Nampa Alcohol Review Committee. Tonight, I am here to discuss an incident report that I had submitted to the Alcohol Review Committee on April 22nd of this year involving the Agave Cantina located at 1516 First Street South. That's in the city of Nampa, County of Canyon, state of Idaho. And I'm going to jump right into the synopsis of the incident, and then I'm going to provide some more information involving our decision for the revocation of the license. So on March 24th of this year, at approximately 11:58 p.m., numerous Nampa police officers responded to the area of the Agave for a call of a man with a firearm. As officers were responding, they were told that the suspect had produced a firearm outside of the establishment, pointed it at some juveniles, and then went into the Agave Cantina. Once officers arrived on scene, it was determined that an aggravated assault did occur with a firearm outside of the establishment, and again, that the suspect of that crime went inside of the Agave Cantina. Officers entered Agave and located our suspect as well as other parties involved in the incident and brought them outside. When officers attempted to identify the suspect, he first gave false information to the police officers and did not have any identification at all on this person. It was later determined that the suspect was a 19-year-old male subject who had committed the crime. And so officers went back into the Agave, interviewed the bartenders at that point in time and asked how they ascertained an identification from this kid. Both bartenders at the time told officers that he used some sort of identification, but officers confirmed in their reports that no identification was provided or given. Our suspect in that case was arrested and charged with felony aggravated assault, and I just want to make it clear to Mayor and Council that that was not part of our decision-making process in this review. That occurred outside of the establishment and not inside. But he was also charged with providing false information to a peace officer and a minor consuming an alcoholic beverage. Both Agave bartenders that night were charged with dispensing alcoholic beverage to a person under age of 21, and they were both warned for allowing a person under the age of 21 to remain on the premises. That incident report was submitted to the committee, and on April 28th, when we met, we went over the details of that incident report. After reviewing the facts of the case, the Alcohol Review Committee unanimously voted that the evidence presented in the incident report constituted a license violation under our current city ordinance 5-12-17. We, the committee, also unanimously voted to assess 2 points against the Agave alcohol license or liquor license, city license under the probation violation section, and 1.5 points under the alcohol regulation sections for the bartender serving the underage person. The Alcohol Review Committee then unanimously voted to submit to the Nampa City Council to revoke Agave's liquor license issued by the city of Nampa. Part of that was the incident report that was submitted and reviewed. Part of the decision-making process that we took as a committee not only was based on that incident report, but others as well that I will discuss now. Previously, December 30th of 2020, the Alcohol Review Committee submitted a report, or I submitted an incident report to that committee involving Agave serving a 20-year-old male who was inside of the establishment threatening others with a firearm. The male was seen leaving Agave and led our police department on a pursuit where he intentionally rammed one of our police cars during that pursuit. The suspect was taken into custody after crashing his car and was charged with 3 felonies, excessive DUI, and carrying a concealed firearm under the influence. Hindsight, we should have included the fact that they were serving an underage person at that point in time as well and allowing them to remain on the premise. As a result of that incident, Agave was placed on a 1-year probation by City Council and Mayor. 24 days later, agave violated their probation with the report that I just provided to you. Since being on probation, the Nampa Police Department has responded to calls involving the agave at least 11 more times, including 4 DUI arrests where it was confirmed the suspect had left and or admitted to drinking alcohol at agave. All 4 of the DUI arrests involved the breath alcohol content exceeding 0.10. Our legal limit is 0.08, but these all exceeded the 0.10 threshold there. And one of the 4 arrests included another excessive DUI where the suspect provided a breath sample of 0.208, 0.206. Other calls for service to the agave since being placed on probation include a shots fired call, the aggravated assault call that I just spoke of, 4 noise complaints called in by neighbors due to the loud music coming from the bar, and a call involving the report of a very intoxicated subject called in by a concerned citizen seen getting into the car after leaving agave. That vehicle was never located, so nothing came of that. Currently, the Idaho State Police Alcohol Beverage Control has 2 pending reviews and 1 confirmed case against agave. On the confirmed case, ABC has issued agave a fine and will suspend their liquor license from the state liquor license from June 10th through the 17th for that violation. I also compiled some data between October 1st of 2020 and May 18th of this year, comparing agave to 6 other downtown Nampa bars and 1 other bar that is now not in the downtown area. That data included calls for service, both reactive, where someone called the police to respond, and proactive, where officers generated their own call. That would be DUIs, traffic stops, bar checks, subject stops, etc. Data compiled during this time showed that the Nampa Police Department had 36 calls for service during that time period to agave alone. It was split in half. 18 of those calls for service were proactive, 18 were reactive. The closest number for calls of service to a single establishment or bar, I'll put there, in the downtown area during that same time was 18, so half of the calls for service. That was the top under agave. The closest number of reactive calls for service to a bar in the downtown area was 9, again half. During that same time period, agave's calls for service included 11 DUI arrests confirmed by officers, again, that they were seen leaving and or admitted to consuming alcoholic beverages at agave. I'll make a note of this. I went at the data objectively. There were more numbers that I reviewed. However, after reviewing those reports, as far as DUI arrest, it would not be appropriate to include those numbers in my testimony due to the fact that there was a lack of evidence in the officers' narratives and their supplemental reports that would tie agave to that report, something that we need to be better at doing. So I didn't include those numbers. It should be noted as well to Mayor and City Council that no proactive call for service by officers involving agave generated a single report from the Alcohol Review Committee. All point violation reports were generated by reactive calls for service called in by citizens of our great city. In summary, under the Nampa City Ordinance, Chapter 5-12-17, subsection 2A1, the Alcohol Review Committee was created as an objective means to monitor licensee misconduct and the failure to exercise proper control over an establishment licensed to sell liquor, beer, and/or wine. A point system was created under the same chapter, broken down into 3 accumulated point classifications: minor, significant, and major. At the time of the current incident report, agave had 3.5 points assessed on their city liquor license already. The current incident report brings forth 3.5 additional points, placing agave in the major point classification. Prior to May 17, 2021, if an establishment reaches a majority or major category, 6.5 points and above during a 12-month period, if they reach that, the Alcohol Review Committee may put forth a recommendation to the City Council to suspend or revoke the license. The City Council shall only elect to suspend or revoke a liquor license after conducting a hearing as we are tonight pursuant to subsection 5-12-17-2F. Speaking from the perspective of a police officer, the Nampa Police Department continues to respond to reactive calls for service, some very serious calls for service at that, to the Agave. Our mission statement, the Nampa Police Department, is through integrity, teamwork, and excellence. It is our mission to respectfully protect and serve our community. Our teamwork value includes working in cooperative effort with community leaders, citizens, and employees to accomplish our goals and reduce crime. I have personally visited with Agave bar owners as well as other bar owners in an attempt to accomplish our goals together and reduce crime. However, Agave continues to hinder our goals as a police department and city by continued responses to their establishment. Agave is being held to the same standard as every other establishment that holds a liquor license in the city of Nampa. As stated before, every incident report generated on Agave has been from reactive calls for service, until a recent change where we can now start including DUIs. No reports, again, have been generated for proactive numbers. Bar checks are performed on multiple bars as a direction of the Nampa Police Department's Downtown Box Project, a CompStat project, specifically downtown bars in the Library Square, created in October 2020 to restore a family-friendly environment, reduce vagrancy, and to reduce crime in the downtown area. All downtown establishments are subject to this project, and we will continue to have officers work towards accomplishing those goals. As the chair of the Alcohol Review Committee, it was voted unanimously by our committee to submit to the City Council they revoke the city liquor license of the Agave Cantina as authorized in our city ordinance 5-12-17. The Alcohol Review Committee respectfully urges the City Council to review the testimony provided tonight and to move to revoke Agave Cantina City of Nampa liquor license. And with that, again, I want to thank you, and if anybody has any questions, I'm available for that at this point in time, or I can wait.
Mayor Kling?
You know, I'd like to pause, and legal, I'd like to ask you, but I'm thinking I'd like for council to write down their questions. Hopefully you have something to write on, and maybe hold those questions to the very end. I think I would prefer that. I would like to remind council, this hearing is very different than our standard hearing. We've gone through one of these before. It is a judicial hearing. I want to clarify that some of what was mentioned tonight is outside the scope of what the points have been given for, but the points were given for two specific areas, and that's what we're considering tonight. Legal, do you have any comment?
Madam Mayor, no, that's correct.
Okay, just so that we stay very focused on the hearing tonight and what's before us. If that's all right, Victor, I think we'll wait till the end and we'll hold all questions till the very end, if you don't mind writing them down.
That's fine.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, this is an opportunity for the applicant or Agave to come forward. And so as you come forward, if you could share your name and address, and I think we have 15 minutes, is that correct? Will there be one or more testimony this evening?
Good evening. More than one. One of the owners will
Okay.
will speak and address the commission as well.
Perfect. So that'll be a total of 15 minutes, and then please share your name and address as you switch out.
Yep. So we'll hold our time, and I'll keep my clock going, and
Thank you.
we'll stick to that, and save some time for questions as well. So thank you. My name is Bill Carter. I'm an attorney here in Nampa. My address, Boise 2174 West Bent Bow Court. It's 83703. Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, public officials, thank you all for your time. We appreciate you being here to hear our position on what you've heard from Officer Burns, who I haven't met, but I appreciate the effort that the department undertakes on behalf of everybody in the city, and their effort should be commended. So we appreciate that. The owners appreciate that. And I wanted to just share with you a few items. First, I'm glad you mentioned the scope of what tonight's discussion really is. The applicant comes into this issue with some points on their tally. The issue is some additional points arising out of a single incident. I want to speak about some of the broader issues that the business is experiencing and how we're addressing those. I agree with the officer. We need to reduce the number of total calls to PD. The goal here is to be a partner with law enforcement, not a target of law enforcement. So, but I just want to walk through a little bit of timeline for everybody here to understand the business. Began in August of 2018, because of COVID, closed June of 2020.
Can I have you pull that up just a hair?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's, yeah, and we can pull it in just a hair. It's kind of tight, isn't it?
Sorry.
Thank you.
I'll lean over. I'm too tall.
That's awesome. Thank you.
2 months of closure, June, July, reopened in August of 2020. The business secured a $22,000 PPP loan during that period to cover operating expenses. And in terms of points and the assessment of violations, had one incident prior to the current one that brings us here today, setting aside calls to local law enforcement. So the point I'm trying to make for you is that whether you're operating a bar, a restaurant, or any other sort of business, a small business in the community, you're going to run into challenges. They understand that the reality here is not that they want to be a repeat offender. They don't want to be an antagonism to law enforcement. They unfortunately have had a couple of incidents involving individuals. The employees involved here have been dismissed. They no longer are employed there. The remaining employees have received the ITIP certification. The certification certificates are here. This is training that's necessary for them to effectively work inside the bar industry. There are a total of 7 employees plus 2 owners in the establishment. So adverse action by the commission here, of course, the council is impacting more than just the license holder. With regard to the state suspension that is upcoming, that is a 7-day suspension that the state concluded was appropriate given the totality of the circumstances. The total cost to the business for that suspension is roughly going to be $10,000 in sales, in addition to payment of a one-time $5,000 fine. And of course, the employees who are impacted is not included in that figure. So as you can see, with a past offense, the business has taken responsibility. It is holding itself accountable. It's accepting the terms of the state's resolution, and it will pay its fine on time and in full. Similarly, what we're asking for from the council is a chance to remand and reassess this particular recommendation. The belief here is that we believe that while there should be some measure of accountability on behalf of the business, the simply revoking the business and putting it out of business altogether seems a little bit beyond the scope of what we're dealing with in terms of an offense. And to that end, what we would like to suggest, if we get the chance on a remand, is that there be a suspension of similar duration to the one that the state has already accepted. A fine can be discussed as well. We would ask that those run concurrent with one another. If the city council feels that it's appropriate to extend that beyond the existing duration that the state has accepted, we can discuss that with you as well. We're happy to consider that. Nobody here is trying to sidestep responsibility. Nobody here is suggesting that we're not going to take some accountability. Again, the employees who were involved in this incident are no longer there. The remaining employees have been trained. There's been outreach by the owners to other bar owners in Boise, specifically learning best practices and how to create a functioning organization that's successful. And so what we're making sure we do going forward is we have training in place, manager on site, constant awareness when it comes to issues that involve underage consumption, outreach to law enforcement, outreach to the community, guidance from legal counsel on a go-forward basis so that they ensure that these things are not repetitive offenses. So I just want to put all of this in a context for you that while we have experienced in the past an issue that Officer Burns addressed, what happened in the past is not necessarily prologue of what will take place in the future. And certainly shutting the business down, a small business with 9 employees and depending on it for their income and livelihood, shutting this business down isn't necessarily going to act as a deterrent for other businesses in the city. It isn't going to do anything for the employees. It's not going to do anything for the owners who have survived a pandemic by taking out loans. It's leaving them compromised with their landlord, where their lease obligations are ongoing. And so what we're looking for here is an opportunity to work with the city, an opportunity to prove to you that there have been changes implemented, and an opportunity to say going forward, you will see a different operation from the Agave. And what we'd like to do is ask for the opportunity to have this remanded, reassessed, and come back to you. Even if you'd like a progress report in the future, we're happy to come back here and report progress. We're happy to give you an assessment of exactly the changes that have been implemented and improvements in the organization so that you can see firsthand that the business is hearing law enforcement loud and clear, taking seriously their responsibility and their role in the community, and then implementing changes necessary in the business. So that's the sum of what I'd like to share with you today. I will just say that in closing, COVID was a challenge for the business. It hasn't recovered fully. Fortunately, the organization has, between its Facebook and its Instagram following, around 7,000 followers combined. It's able to communicate effectively with them. That channel is also a communication tool where the business can encourage people to be aware of consumption, be aware of the issues of underage drinking. We can actually become a sounding board for some of the message that law enforcement would like to share with the community. We cannot do that if we are foreclosed from operating the business. So, and just bear in mind that a 7-day closure for the business translates roughly into $10,000 top line, and that's just in addition to any fine. So we ask that you consider the financial implication, consider that this is a small business trying to sophisticate itself in the community. We've implemented a number of positive changes in the business model. The organization is ready, I think, to become a much more active part of the community. And with that, unless you have any questions, I will turn the floor over to one of the owners here.
Thank you. And we'll do questions maybe at the after you
Okay,
conclude,
we'll
so
hold
it doesn't
those.
take out of your time.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, City of Nampa. My name is Danny Palomera, and we've met before. And I'm here to address some issues that's going on at the moment with my business. First and foremost, I want to apologize to all of you guys, the City of Nampa, the Nampa PD. I want to let you guys know that I understand and I appreciate law enforcement being there, because guess what? If I need them, I can call them, especially when I run a bar. I understand that I need you guys in this community as well so we can make decisions and have a safe place. So I am deeply, deeply sorry, guys. Those were not my intentions at all. I hate that I'm back in this circumstance again. I know that sometimes I let my emotions take over me, so I would like to apologize for that as well. I take full responsibility as the face of Agave, as the operator and half owner of these incidents. I could have made better decisions as far as not trusting the people I trusted, who I hired. Right now, as you guys know, it's impossible to hire anybody. Nobody wants to work. I was able to find trust, and somebody came in and they wanted to work. They're a good worker, got blindsided. Again, that's part of my fault for allowing myself to trust somebody to that debt in my business, my income, and putting the community at risk. So I want to say I'm sorry. We did let go of that individual immediately. I also want to state for the record that we 86, many people that have been causing trouble. Even if I hear something, I just straight up just go and say, hey, you can't come here. Maybe I'll see you around. I know maybe, I don't know if Sabrina Martinez sounds familiar to the Nampa PD, but she is very, very well 86, I think from all downtown Nampa at this point. So I have been paying attention on those things. And I just want to say that I am a member of the community, guys. I'm a board member of the Idaho Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I represent small businesses. I represent small Latino businesses and young entrepreneurs. I'm an advocate for growth. I'm always available to help anybody that wants to be in charge of, wants to start a business. I'm not a professional, but I will lead them to where they need to be. My taco trailer outside of Agave, I'm actually really proud of that because I did help those individuals with paperwork, with language barriers, and I take pride on that. And I feel that me owning Agave, being a young entrepreneur, Latino, sharing my culture, I have made people feel like you make it look easy. Can you help me here? Can you help me there? And with my team, the Idaho Hispanic Chamber, my mentors, I got Ivan Castillo, Enrique Rivera, and Irma Valvida. I know you guys know all these community members in the city of Nampa, and I feel like they believe in me, and they have invested some of their time to coach me, to become a better business owner, to make better decisions. And trust me, guys, it's been stressful, This is my livelihood for my staff. That staff I have now, I love. We're trained. We're like a family. I want to be more involved with the city as well. And please use us if we can work together to be advocates for no underage drinking or make promo videos. Like I think as a bar owner and a local member of the community that went to Nampa High, West Middle School, went to CWI, that I worked all around in my teens, all around the city, to be able to use my voice, even if it's just here in the city, to prevent these things. Once again, I'm sorry. Sometimes things have to get worse before they get good. And I just want to say that we love Nampa, and that's why we're fighting to stay here. And I love that I can share a little bit about my culture in the city of Nampa, that the city is growing tremendously, and I know you guys know it. And I think it's beautiful when diversity takes place in the city. So with that being said, thank you guys so much. And I, once again, deeply apologize for the potential risk I ran the city for me running the business. So thank you guys.
Thank you. So at this time, this is an opportunity. Council, if you have any specific questions, or whether it be Lieutenant Jamie Burns or to Danny or legal counsel, I believe, let me check with my legal counsel, we are able to ask questions if there is a question.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So I think Councilman Rodriguez, you're first.
Are we allowed to have anyone from the community to testify on behalf of?
This is not a public hearing.
Okay, just clarify that.
Yeah.
Here's a question to legal. Is this just for the alcohol, or is this for the liquor, or is it for beer and wine included?
Madam Mayor, council member, it's for both violations that were assessed points. So there was a probation violation, was a point assessment because the conduct occurred while on probation, and then the serving underage was the second violation. Those two totaled are what were presented tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions from council at this time?
George Lopez. George Lopez.
Hours at your establishment? When do you work?
So I work, right now it's a little crazy because we're short staff, as you guys can imagine. But I work the operating hours Mondays, mornings. But, oh my gosh. So I'm there on the weekends, and then my security gets there. And then depending on how busy it is, I may or may not leave, but I have a chain of command, which is manager, assistant manager, and me. So one of us three is always in the premises. I actually have actively been having an open line communication with Officer Burns through email and some phone calls, and he knows the name of our management and who needs to be there, whether it's either me, my bar manager is Pedro, he's sitting right there, or Amber Connolly, which is my assistant manager.
Is George ever there?
George does go in and check in, yes.
Okay.
But I would say he's more of a investor partner than operating partner.
When is your most challenging times for these type of things to happen?
We've never had an incident happen on the weekends. The incidents have always happened on like blind sides, like days that it's slow and I decided to go home because I've been working a lot, or days that like Tuesday or Wednesday. But all these incidents happened after 11:30, so we now close the bar at 11:30 Sunday through Wednesday. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, we close at 1, but we have a security and a door person at 8:30 every day of those days. To assure.
And you don't need you don't need me to address you as far as how to run your business. But once you have a probation, I don't understand why you would not do anything in your power. Be there if you need to be there, all open hours, until you have your people trained, until you have an understanding. And there would not be any chance of something happening without either you or George, who have the ownership and the investment in the business, being there. I don't understand that from a business standpoint. You just are always there when you need, when there's any chance of this type of thing happening. So anyway.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Okay, we have an obligation, Danny, and I'm not done. Come back. We have an obligation to our community to keep everyone safe. One of the
Correct.
worst accidents that's preventable is DUIs. We have to take care of our community. They're first, not you,
Correct.
because you're serving the alcohol. The thing is, when you came here last time, you said that you were going to educate your employees. I don't think that's been done, because now, again, you're serving an underage.
Yes, and Mr. Rodriguez,
I'm not finished yet.
Okay.
Let me answer, or let me talk. And the other thing is the amount of calls that the police department is having to respond to. It's a matter of time before someone gets hurt or someone gets killed. Taking a firearm is your right to wear, but I draw the line when it's mixed with alcohol. And you said you had security, but I don't know that you did. So I'm very concerned. And then you come and say that you have alternatives and you're going to do this and do that, but I think you failed that. So I think it appears that you're naive when it comes to running a business, because you'll be here again before us. And what do? Do we keep your business open, or do we keep the community safe? Police officers go into two calls. One is domestics, and number two is the alcohol related. Those are the two of the most dangerous calls, especially when you have more than 4 or 5, where a bar full of patrons that think they can take on the police. That's why police come and arrive at your place in force to take care of themselves. That is the other ugly situation that I don't want to go to, and I've been to many of them. So can you explain why?
I just want to say that after the first incident, I guarantee you guys that I did everything from the get-go, from incident report forms to employee warning forms. As you guys know, a lot of these weapons and allegations for weapons and assaults are in that parking lot that's in the corner and not inside of my establishment. And when I hire security, I hire to doorman the door in front. So I don't have a security that goes down the block to the Nampa School District Cleaning District office parking lot. If that's something that I would have to pay out of my pocket, I'd be willing to have a security guard that at the parking lot. I would maybe suggest and talk to the Nampa School District, hey, maybe you guys want to fence it up or tow people that park there. Less parking, less DUIs, less driving traffic. It encouraged the patrons to come and get an Uber instead. And as far as after our first incident where I came, I did have an action plan. I did policy changes, and we had to sit back with this particular employee, Sonia. Like I said before, it was somebody that I thought I could trust, but that was my poor lack of judgment. And what I want to say is that I'm not whatsoever an advocate for violence or anything in that matter, underage drinking. I think I've made it clear that I've always wanted to be in a position to help the city. You're right, I might be a little naive, but I am growing and I am doing everything at this point, any exclusive training. This is something I've always wanted to do. I get that we're a little bit outside of the Nampa, the pretty part of downtown Nampa. We're not in that central area. And I know that area has always kind of had a little bit of trouble. But just a reminder, we were next to a hookah bar for a couple of years, and we never had any underage drinking. And there was an 18 and older establishment next door. We had a car show that I thought a couple hundred people were going to go. The police said it was over 500, and it was a community event for all ages, no underage drinking. Back in 2018 or 19, we had Latino Fest in Boise, where I had to go to the city council in Boise, ask permission. They saw a young Latino business owner. Second, kind of were like, hey, we don't know. They gave me the chance. We had over 4,000 or 5,000 people, and I had no issues as well. So the capability is there. We've done this before. We've been running it without having these issues. As you guys can see, these reports have been pretty much after COVID. And I'm not trying to blame all like, oh, COVID this, COVID that. But let's be honest, people got a little weird after. They were stuck in their houses. They started going out, and we tried catching that. Hey, like staff meeting, bars are opening up again. People are getting a little too rowdy. What are we gonna do? So I just want to say that it is definitely a process that I've learned. I want to mention the capabilities, and I think I have good mentors that are going to back me up, or that have been backing me up by giving me knowledge. And
Okay.
yeah, you're right.
Okay. I think I would like to give their legal opportunity to comment. Just a quick
30
comment.
seconds. Thank you, Madam Mayor, City Attorney. I just want to remind the council, first, commend your focus, as it rightfully should be, on community safety. That's overarching all of this. The narrow issue before the council is whether or not revocation based on this single incident that is documented by Officer Burns is appropriate, or whether remand and reassessment should take place. We're getting, no disrespect, a little far afield from the core issue that's before the council. And we more than happy to sit down with community leaders in a different setting and talk about some of the larger, broader concerns. Willing to do that, absolutely willing to do that. And I think law enforcement would be willing to as well. Come up with solutions together, but we can't do that. We cannot demonstrate improvements in the business operation and the model if we're shut down. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Levi?
Thank you, Mayor. Lieutenant Burns, may I ask you some questions, please? I'm not overly familiar with the bar industry, and I know that you have visited, you've gone in law enforcement official capacity, et cetera. And so I'm asking for your professional opinion on these and advice. The first thing is, how does an establishment of this nature go about making positive changes in their clientele that walks in the door?
Well, I too sat down with both owners, and one of the first things I had said was what Councilman Brunner had said, is if this was my establishment, I would be here 24/7 to make sure that it is run at the capacity that it should be, that is not a business that is calling police every night or getting calls for service from the police. So I would say involvement from the ownership is probably a priority. They have been, again, I went down and met with them in person. I know at one point in time, again, they had felt that they were being targeted, but we had that conversation, working together also with parking issues in the whole downtown area that we're having, being involved in that. And I will say that Danny, especially, he was asking questions and brought up issues that we had brought up as well with a certain parking lot that's a lot of patrons in the entire downtown area. So being involved in that, where they are going, they're drinking in their cars, they're leaving trash everywhere, being involved in trying to prevent that from happening and working with everybody in the downtown area. So actually becoming involved in the community that you're working in, I guess, and especially in the downtown area for this establishment, I think would be a priority in my professional opinion.
So with the owner being there more frequently, and I understand from what I've heard, there's security at the door. So what difference does it make how often the owner is there and security at the door? I'm trying to figure out that relationship because I want to know, can we offer a real obtainable goal for them to change that clientele to alleviate these problems?
So what I had offered in that question would be your security at the door is responsible just for that. They're checking IDs, they're making sure that people aren't coming in that are already intoxicated. As a bar owner, what I would be doing is I would be watching the crowd, watching people as they're going to the bar, getting more drinks, being served more drinks, and recognizing when you have people that are being over-serviced and cutting that service off. Not being the person that has a specific responsibility of serving drinks or doing anything else. I would say it would be very helpful, obviously, to be able to watch the crowd and watch the mood of the crowd and see that things are getting ready to get out of control. Or even go up and make sure that people have their IDs, even if they were checked already, but we're having that issue. So again, not having one focused responsibility, the entire bar as a bar owner, I think would be beneficial for them to watch over.
And how much authority does a security person at a door have?
Well, they can refuse service, and when the people refuse to leave, they can call the police department because the person will not leave the establishment, and when they won't leave, then they can be trespassed, and we can document it that way.
Okay, and then the responsibility of patrons that show the false ID. So if I wouldn't know if I saw a false ID unless it was something really obvious. So how does the security person know that and the person serving the drink? And then if it's hard to tell, to me, I'm still having a little bit of a disconnect as to how come our bartender is responsible for a fake ID if it's not really something that's easily detectable. I apologize for my being uneducated.
Well, in this last incident, the patron had no ID. So that wasn't the case. It wasn't an ID that was false and given to the bartender. He had no ID at all. The other, I couldn't testify to the fact of whether or not the 20-year-old that led us on a pursuit, whether or not he had ID either. So I don't know if he presented, maybe they didn't have security. I don't know the details of that as far as presenting false ID. I will say if, speaking from my own perspective, if I respond to a call for service, say at the Agave, where a patron did produce a fake ID that is, maybe it's a real ID, but it's somebody else and they look a lot alike, I personally or professionally would probably give more leniency towards that establishment potentially, make it note in my report. But as far as charging maybe a bartender, now obviously if it's an ID that is clearly fake or they look nothing like the individual in a real ID, I might not be as lenient in that case. But again, training experience from security. Again, that's another thing, another backup plan from an owner possibly to go around talking to the patrons, making sure that they have what they need to actually be in the establishment.
2 last questions, if you'll grant me the option to do that. So have you seen that Agave has taken some proactive steps since we spoke last time?
I believe so, only because of the communication. Again, I met in person. It was the first time, George, correct? The first time I had met George, we had, the conversation kind of started off on the bad foot, but at the end of the conversation, we talked about working together, both as an establishment and law enforcement. And so Danny had told me that security, they had changed some hours as well. He was there more often at the bar. Again, he testified to how often he is there. But so again, security, certain days, I believe, if I remember correctly, when they would be open, when they would not be open, and then more of his presence happened.
So my last question, and I want to preface it a bit with this. So the owner testified that in the past, he's held community events without incident. And, if you're outside, big crowd, it's a lot different than being confined in 4 walls where something is definitely more detectable. And with that preface, I need to ask legal to ensure that I'm going to ask a question, and if I'm not allowed to ask it or he's not allowed to answer it, please let me know. In your professional opinion, from what you've seen with what they've done so far and what their past history is with some of these events they've had in the past, would you say that you could see that they could move more in a positive direction?
The first concern I had as Danny was testifying is that you talked about COVID. But again, in preparation for this hearing, I looked at seven other establishments, and we're not seeing the same issues or the same degree of issues that we are with Agave, even post probation status. They all have patrons, I believe, that have been involved with COVID. Same rules of engagement going out because of being stuck in the house for so long. But we're not seeing those numbers. From Agave, we are. And again, since probation, we continue to see them. So that was a concern that I had.
So may I ask one follow-up question on that, Mayor? I'm sorry. Would you say then that the challenge is clientele or ownership?
I would say both.
Thank you.
Mayor Quinn?
Yes.
Just for my own knowledge, is it state law that anyone can enter the establishment without showing their ID? Or do they have to show their ID to be able to enter the establishment?
They do have to have a valid ID with them when their door even states that you have to be 21 years of age to
walk across the threshold into the building.
That is correct.
So they would have had to have shown it at that point, and then do they show it again when they order a drink? Is that how the bartenders are brought into the dialogue of having to review somebody's license?
I believe that would be a more appropriate. If they don't have security, then I believe it would be a bartender that would be checking the ID to make sure before they serve them that they have a valid ID.
But if they're even, by state law, if they're not allowed to be in the building without a valid ID, the bartender would have expected if they're in the building that they would have already shown an ID. Is that correct? For them to
Correct.
be in the building.
Could be, yes.
So, I mean, maybe they're duplicating the review at the counter, I guess, when they're being served, but to be able to even get in the building, someone has to be of age and prove that.
Correct. And I can't testify whether or not they would have to, where their security was there the night that this incident happened or not.
But still, I mean, that would be a violation in itself if they're in the building and they don't have proper ID.
Right, but a bartender can't assume that they have
They still
the
have
ID
to
just
ask
because
for it,
it's law. They would have to ask, you have to have a valid ID.
regardless if there's somebody at the front door screening people coming in.
Well, I don't know that answer or what their protocol is, but if somebody is not at the front door, the bartender at least needs to check the ID. They can't assume that they have an ID.
Okay, but that causes me some concern, because if state law states that you have to have an ID to be able to even step across the threshold to go into that establishment, that's a requirement of the business owner to confirm if they're going to be in the building or not. And then if they're going to be served, obviously, maybe that's a follow-up review of that same license or whatever it might be. But I can see where there can be confusion with the bartender not knowing if they've been checked at the door or not. If they're still being asked to see somebody's valid ID for every drink that they're given, that's what I'm wondering. Is that a requirement? Is it not a requirement?
Well, I would like to, could we, Danny, very short answer, I'd like to know, or legal, what is the practice that you have there at Agave? And what is the requirement? My understanding is if you are tip certified, as a server, you have a responsibility under your certification to ensure you're not serving underage or over-serving based on your tips training. However, that said, I would like to, if I could, very, very quick answer.
Just quick answer. Okay. So yeah, the answer is my staff and I are tip certified. When somebody comes in, let's say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they come in, they go in the door, they go to the bar top, says order here. So there's a sign that says 21 and over, ID ready. When you walk in, there's a clock watch with the date of how old you need to be. So when I see ID and I need a reassurance, I look up, the date's right there. So when they come into the establishment, they go up to the bar, and usually it's like, hey, how's it going? Debbie, can I see your ID real quick? Oh, I don't have it, but you know me. I'm sorry. I know you might be my uncle, my mom, the city of Nampa mayor, but you don't have your ID, you can't be here. I think you're suggesting to have somebody at the door just to even get inside, but that would be something that I feel like if we had to do that, all the bars in Nampa would do, because any bar you go to, you walk in up to the bar, order a drink, they ask for your ID, you don't have it, you gotta go.
So that answered that question, because I think what I understood from Jamie Burns is the door is posted, so it's clearly stated that no one under 21 is allowed. But they do have to show their ID at the bar.
So a 12-year-old could walk in the building, not order a drink, but could be inside the building. Shouldn't be, but
If they
could.
catch them, they would have them.
Right. That's my question, from Officer Burns. Is it against the state law for someone underage to be able to even be in the building? And it sounds like they can be if there's not somebody at the door checking their ID.
They're not allowed to be, but then the question, I think are you asking then the question, do you always have someone at the door to prevent it? I think what I heard Danny say is, I don't know if all bars have someone at the door, but they're not allowed, they're not allowed to stay.
Thank you.
So, is there further discussion from the council? Needless to say, we have some options on decisions and legal. Do you by any chance have a couple options that you have written down for motions tonight?
Not written down, Madam Mayor, but we'll
okay.
go over them briefly.
Thank you.
The options are to affirm or accept the recommendation presented by the committee. And if you accept that recommendation, it would be a revocation of the liquor license. Option 2 is you can reject in full the recommendation and close the matter. Option 3 would be to remand the process back to the Alcohol Review Committee. And if you were to remand, it would be constructive to provide some direction on the type of alternate remedy that you think the Alcohol Review Committee should consider in its future deliberations of this event. So those are the three options you have available.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so what is the will? Yes?
Investing the dollars into you at this point in time, I don't think that's very smart on his part, but you're going to land on your feet. You're going to do well. I am going to make the motion that we recommend that we follow the recommendation of the committee to revoke the beer, wine, and liquor license held by Agave Cantina. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Madam Mayor?
Yes?
A quick question from legal. Is the motion based upon the facts and evidence presented in today's hearing?
Correct.
Or the totality of all that we've heard?
Correct. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we affirm the recommendation of the committee. If there's no further discussion, is there discussion?
Mayor? Yes, I understand exactly where those who made the motion and seconded are coming from, and it's a difficult decision to make. If I were going to make a motion, I would make a motion to remand and also put them on an extremely tight leash with no room for failure. So, so with that, I will be voting no or in opposition of the motion.
Mayor Quinn.
Yes?
I think it's known that this council supports small business, whether it's Hispanic-owned or otherwise. Small business is the heart of our community. So it's important that that's stated. My concern is this, if there'd been one incident, it would have fallen into categories that are horrific, you know, as far as homicides, prostitution, human trafficking. Those things are at 6.5. You're at 7. You know, but this isn't one time. So what gives me pause is the number of number of calls that the police department has responded to. That is a continual behavior that is a concern to me. So I struggle with the motion in a sense in supporting it, but then again, I don't, because I don't want to see this behavior continue. Because if someone is especially underage, being given alcohol, and then they're on the street in a vehicle, and they were to strike someone that is near and dear to me, that would be horrific to my family. So, I mean, we have to have, as Councilman Rodriguez has said, a concern for the community, the best interest of the community, so I will be supporting the motion.
Mayor Klein.
Yes.
You know, my heart says to remand the process back to the committee, because I know Danielle can actually make it work. But I'm really concerned with the safety. And tough decision. I don't want to close them down, because I know that they've done good business there with community support. Unfortunately, it's a tough situation with the danger to our community. I will support the motion.
There's no further discussion. Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Pachi?
She had to step off.
Levi?
No.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. And Bruner?
Yes.
Okay, so unfortunate for you today is that City Council has voted to affirm the recommendation. And with that, it's because it was not the first time that you had come before us and shared the same expression.
Okay. I just want to say thank you once again. I know that you guys won't be seeing the last of me. I'll be back. Hopefully we can work a little bit. I can figure out what other business I can do with the community help. I do want to say thank you guys for the opportunity. I'm sorry that I'm portrayed as, you know, not fit to run a business at the moment. But I will bounce back. I will land on my feet. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate the Nampa PD. And thanks for all my mentors and the supports that took their time and gave the opportunity to try to make me a better me and a business owner. Thank you guys, and you guys have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Very honorable.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling. So now I'll have to, my grandson is graduating from Napa High today at the Fort Idaho Center.
And I think you better get out the
I
door.
think I better get going, so.
Really fast.
I
Yes.
just want to let everybody know that I have studied this HB 389 with council members and also with our finance director. And I support the committee and our community to take care of this matter and to take it on, head on, so we can figure out what's best for our community. So keep that in mind. And Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd like to be dismissed, and
You are dismissed.
thank you.
Enjoy graduating.
Thank you.
Okay, so action item number 2, this is to approve the 2021-22 alcohol renewals. And this was the updated renewal list that was included in the packet that have completed all of the necessary actions.
And Mayor, question, these are all renewals. They've already had their liquor or beer and wine.
Because of the June 1 date, they're all coming in kind of together, and so these are all renewals.
So move.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Levi,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
and Bauer.
Yes.
Item 2.3 is an action item, and this is a little different. It's to authorize the mayor to sign the alcohol renewal licenses for establishments that satisfy all state and county requirements, complete the background check, that are not subject to any pending actions, who have made full payment to the clerk by June 1st deadline. There is a subsequent list that are awaiting response from the county. So that's why they are not, we can't have full approval, but as long as we have that okay, it saves them from being closed down in the event that they don't get their county applications information processed. And these are also the same as the list before, but they just don't have the final county. They're waiting. So I'd be authorizing me to go ahead and sign their renewal licenses when they come through.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call?
Levi,
Yes.
Bauer,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
and Brunner.
Yes.
So the next item on the agenda is actually, Ozzy's going to join us this evening, and I think Doug Racine also are going to be here. And we're talking about the fiscal impact study. This is the study that we've done, just looking at what the impact is of new growth and how it impacts the community. Needless to say, this came out of the discussion with House Bill 389 and what its impact is. But at the same time, we are dealing with the impact of House Bill 389. We're also dealing with the challenge of growth. And I will say a lot of our citizens are saying, what are we doing about growth? Are we pausing growth? Are we just going full bore ahead? And I will say that we're really trying to make wise decisions regarding growth. The one thing that our citizens have shared, and that is that growth must fund growth. That growth should not take place at the burden to our existing citizens. And so we're trying to ensure that our fiscal policy within the city and the work that we do, that the new growth is all funded by new growth. The other thing I do want to mention is that while we're undergoing significant growth, many of the new subdivisions that are coming online, I can't say a percentage, some of those actually were annexed in and approved some time ago, even during the downturn. So that back a number of years ago, they were annexed, they're approved, they just didn't move forward with the development. And so there isn't at this time, because they're already approved, they're coming online now. And so it isn't that everything coming online today has just been approved. When in actuality, many times it's a year to 4 years from the time we actually approve a development till those homes are built and they come on the tax rolls. And so it isn't all at the same time. It happens over time. But right now, what we're experiencing are things that were already approved that are coming online. And then, of course, there are new houses that are coming also. But so something that we have had in place is the information from a fiscal impact study, but it needed to be further refined. And so we've engaged Ozzie, and he's worked with us previously, and he's here to talk a little bit about the fiscal impact tool that we're working through. Ozzie, thank you for your work, and thank you for joining us this evening.
Let me make sure this isn't my face here. So
Thank you.
thank you for having me, Mayor. My name's Ozzie Grippentrog, and I'm with Galena Consulting. And Mayor, you stole half of my presentation, so
I'm sorry.
I'm going to have to come up with some new material. But normally, Ann is the face. You know Ann Westcott is usually the face of Galena. She's the one that stands up and does all the presentations. I'm the guy that sits in the back with a computer in front of me and makes calculations. So I'm a little nervous. Hopefully you'll just bear with me here as we go through this. All right, so first off, I'd like to give you a brief history of the fiscal impact study and the corresponding tool that we created. So the study was created a couple years ago, and it's an analytical model that we made to calculate the economic impact of new construction and development and annexation based on your future comprehensive plan at a predetermined level of build out. So what we did was we took the entire city, and then we looked at all of the new construction and there was either commercial or residential, lots of different options, and we built the model to reflect what the economic impact would be. And then once we recognized what the plan looked like, we came up with some scenarios that were a little bit different. So one of them was based construction and new development based on travel corridors. And that was ultimately the one we said was probably your best use of your planning resources is to identify those. So we went, after that model was completed and we turned in the study to the council at that time, we were called by staff to do one-off scenarios of an individual project. And so I was typically the one that had to do those, and I would have to go and take the existing model and modify it. And it was a little complicated, and it wasn't really designed to do one-off scenarios. And as I was doing it, I talked to staff, and we both agreed that there's probably, because we did several in a row, we agreed that it probably makes more sense to do a different type of model that's really more designed for individual projects. And that's what ultimately was the fiscal impact analysis that we created. Okay. Oh, I already jumped past that whole one. Hold on a second. So that's my continued. Sorry, I'm gonna catch up here. Yep, that's everything I said. All right, so what's the function for this tool? The fiscal impact analysis, like I said, is designed to evaluate the net financial impact of new development projects in real time. So we look at individual projects. We're looking at your current year financial statements. We're looking at your current levy rate that's certified. This year it's a little confusing because of the governor's initiative, and that changed your levy rate and that changed your property tax value. So it's not as simple as it always was. And then we estimate your property values for whatever project we're talking about. Excuse me. Whether it's commercial or residential, and then we run the math on the model. And what I really want to, it's really important that you understand this is one piece of information that we're providing to council. You're making a decision that has lots of different variables, and it's a good financial tool, and it can be used to help make your decision. But just because it may say it's financially feasible or not feasible, that's only one part of the calculation that you really need to evaluate, because there's jobs that are related to this, there's other impacts that you guys are going to be evaluating. So you need to remember that this is just one aspect and shouldn't be the only determining factor for approval. You have to look at it in a whole. And so that's really important. I wanted to kind of emphasize that, because there are some limitations to the tool. So one of the ones that we're dealing with today are legislative changes. And now with HB 389 becoming law, it's changed how everything works. The tool had to be modified and updated because the homeowner's exemption went up. The developmental revenues calculations went down. The levy rates changed. It was much more complicated. And so that does limit some of the effectiveness of the tool in reality. There's also a problem with rapidly changing market conditions. I think if I did the math right, the property values in Nampa in this 1 year have gone up 20% in that neighborhood. That's a huge jump in property values. And what normally happens in this scenario is when property values go up, the levy rate goes down in a one-to-one relationship. That's how they work. Well, when we're using this tool, we're looking at today's levy rate and today's market values, and the levy rate is actually artificially high because it would have gone down with the market value in the new calculation. Ironically, HB 389 kind of solves some of that. So that's bizarre, but that actually is, it gets it more in a one-to-one relationship. But you have a situation when market is going up of positive arbitrage because you're using a high rate and a high value in a high property value, or in a downturn, the opposite, negative arbitrage, where you're using a low rate and a low value. So I think I might have come up with some solutions as we do this tool going forward to help minimize some of that, and we'll implement that when we get to the next round of updating this. Some of the other issues, projects evaluated, just like the mayor said, projects evaluated today may not be completed anytime soon, 1 to 4 year lag possibly, or even longer when we are still looking at stuff from the downturn, the past projects that are 10 years old that are still now coming through because the developers smartly held off on construction when the economy didn't justify it. I think they're still a little nervous about really going all in. I know I would be if I was in the housing industry, but that's me. So another issue is this really creates problems when you're trying to forecast into the future, because you're going to have taxable values and different rate changes. You're going to have annexation values and different rate changes. You're going to have new construction values and different rate changes. You're going to have your estimated sales tax and those things. So you're dealing with a lot of alternatives now that can change the way the tool works. And this changes the levy rate because it will fluctuate. And it also, the easiest one, honestly, to calculate would be your growth in your departmental expenses. I think we could probably get a decent number for that. For the rest of these, it really makes it complicated. And I know there are tools out there that you could do a Monte Carlo simulation and you could find a best fit, and it's still a whole lot of work, and it's not going to really get you much closer to an answer than what we're trying to do with the tool now today. So just remember, it's a tool. It's a hammer in a toolbox. You have a screwdriver, you have a wrench, you have other things. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all your problems. It will just help you to inform to make decisions. So just want to caveat that as much as I can. All right. So let's talk about how it works. So in October, this is typically how we do this. You have your adopted budget that's now loaded into the tool, and we do this at the department and office and detail level, at expense level. We have our certified levy rate that's loaded into the tool, and then we run a query out of your geographic information system, your GIS system, to pull all your parcel data into the tool. And then we have to clean that data a lot because it comes in multiple sheets and tabs, and you have parcels that are in different categories that you have to marry all together. So it's a little complicated, but once we get it all together, we get it into your financial statements and we marry the document together. That's our starting point. So what we're trying to do with this tool, and we explain this, in the study, is there's two aspects that you have to think about. You have your fixed costs that are not going to change. Your council members are a fixed cost. If the economy doubles, I doubt you'd have twice as many council members. I could be wrong, but I would doubt it. But your police department is highly variable. As the economy grows, they need more officers because there's usually a metric that's determining based on your population how many officers you have. Fire is the same way. Your roads department is the same way. As growth happens for them, it's a higher variable cost, and that's what we're trying to capture in this model. And so we will go through with all your department heads and we'll say, okay, here's your new budget. Is there anything abnormal here that you guys need to be aware of? And are your metrics similar to what they were in the past? But give them their starting point so they're not starting from scratch every single time, because that's a pain. So then we'll go through all that. And once we have that information, then that model's ready to go live. Okay? So the two pieces in the model that we calculate are both commercial and residential. And on the commercial side, it's a little more complicated because the data that comes out of the geographic information system, I'm not absolutely confident that the square footage information on there is totally correct for commercial. I know the parcel information is correct because they get it down to the centimeter, decimals of, so I know the property value is correct. I know the property square footage of the parcel is correct. So that's what we've been using as our commonality for all of the commercial. So we use that both to calculate the actual per square foot, and then we use that per square foot and whatever size of the parcel that's going to be under development, we do the math the opposite direction. Whoa. Cap. Like I said, the parcel size is most accurate, and this makes sure that all of the parcels are handled equally on the commercial side. Residential is easy. We have the square footage, we know the value, duh. That one's a no-brainer, so it's very simple. So, oops. So as we met with, when we were building this tool, we met with planning and several staff people actually helped me with this, and we came up with essentially commercial types. And this is how we use the tool now to calculate the different projects. So if we know it's an RV park, we can select an RV park. If we know it's an office building less than 7,500 square feet, we can use that metric. And so we can select, we only have 3 for residential, but that's, single family, multifamily, fourplex, multifamily apartment. We figured with what we've got up here, we've captured 80% of your construction types. There's going to be the other 20% that'll have to be done separately, but this gets you the vast majority of your work done. Oh, I thought I stopped. Okay, so I'm going to walk through a commercial scenario. This is vanilla. I haven't made any adjustments to anything. This is just how it would come out of the tool right now without me doing any modifications. What we typically do, we define the project under review. That comes from the city. Identify its location. And then once we know its location and the size of it, we would normally talk to fire, police, and roads about any abnormal impacts, because they're going to know if it's a bar, it's going to have a different impact than an office building. So they are going to tell us if there's more or less of an impact. Then we make any adjustments into the tool based on that information, and then we go through and we select a classification, and then we identify the property value and calculate the impact. So what that looks like is the first one here. I just did an office building, less than 7,500 square feet. That image is kind of small, so I blew it up for you a little bit so you can see the numbers a little bit better. Oh, I don't have well, it doesn't matter. So as you see, the classification shows office building 7,500, but I actually hovered over with my mouse when I was taking the snapshot of the picture. I hovered over greater than 7,500. You actually have to, wherever the mouse goes, on these selectors, it just hovers over it and highlights it. So I clicked on the correct one, but it highlighted the wrong one. But that's what the starting point of a typical office building less than 7,500 square feet final result would look like. The first thing we'd want to do is we need to find out, what is this? So let's say it's a $500,000, or let's say a $600,000 half-acre parcel. That would be anywhere along this. You can kind of see it runs along a diagonal axis. So if we know what the size of the acreage is, and we know what the size, we can estimate the value of the building. Sometimes the developers will tell us what they think this is going to market out at. Sometimes we just have to go and look at market comps in the same area. So we have to it takes a little bit of work to sometimes zero in on this. But if we know right now typical values are $24 a foot, and it's 600,000, then it's going to be close to a half acre. So it's probably going to work. And what you end up doing is you go back to that spot, which is 24, and let's go to let's go to the very bottom. 22 and 0.63 is 598. So, oops, wow, that was crazy. So 22, so that would be a positive of about $800 right now without any modifications. So that tells you on this commercial, it's likely that it's going to pencil out, and it would be something as that piece of information to move forward. That's pretty much how the commercial works. Residential works almost the same way. It's just a little more work typically that goes into this because there's usually more than one lot. So I did, as a scenario, the Lake Brook sub, which is one that was up for council notice last week. This is not complete because I never was able to talk to police, fire, roads, or parks about their assessment of impact, but it was 334 residential lots. The location is in the MLS area, the multiple listing service area of Nampa Northwest 51-1270. So we can get from the MLS last month's new home construction, anything that's sold, what it sold is both median and average. So we get pretty decent information on residential now in the area that we're looking at, which is nice. It makes it a better tool. So I would have looked at the fire. Oh, this is an old slide. Doggone it. Okay, it's all right. I'll work around it. So I would have worked with police, fire, et cetera, and then any adjustments they tell me, we'd adjust the tool. We're going to look under the classification type SF or single-family residential, and right now those values in the MLS are in the $400,000 range, just about. So I calculated when this is done, I'll show you the impact of roughly $100,000. Oh, crud. What did I just do? Does it come back up? Ah, awesome. Okay, so this is where that parcel lies. And you can see that it's in the northwest. I would bet if I were to ask police and they were to look at this parcel, and it's going to be 334 homes, that equates to roughly 0.8 of an FTE would be my guess. They would probably look at that and say, you know what? To service that area, we'd need a full FTE. So it's going to be more than what I have in my model. So I would probably take some money down. Fire probably would say, looking at that, that's far enough out that if we send a crew out there and we have and they're at the end of a shift change, we're going to get hit with OT. And so both of those is probably going to give us more of an impact. So the amount of money that I'm showing the model here later is more than the 100,000 I talk about, because I think they would probably come back with some arguments of why this is going to be a little more expensive for them to service than what we have in our model.
So the 100,000 in the last slide was the financial impact.
Yes, and that's,
And
so,
it's plus the additional.
so your financial impact
You're gonna
includes
add
the
one
cost of,
FTE.
you already have 0.8 of an FTE baked into this model
that's-
to calculate it.
Annually.
Yes,
Okay.
annual.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
so
you have 0.8 in the model, but when you have to take it up,
I
the
would
other
have to
two-
modify the model for that extra 0.2 to make, to raise it up. Now, I did not do that. I'm just telling you, I did the math.
What you would do.
You know, as a kind of a back of the envelope calc. And it's about 20 grand, I think, is probably what it ended up costing when it's all said and done for that. So not speaking to them, not knowing what they would say. They may say more, I don't know. This is where these homes would fall on this matrix. So we have a home for 400,000 in the neighborhood in different levels. I don't know what the builder plans on building. I don't know what the square footage is. So I have to kind of use a couple of these. Once again, more information from the developer, more information we can load, and it makes it a cleaner model. But for now, for what we're talking about, I think it's realistic to take those counts, and then all I do is I do a simple average of all of those different calculations, and you can see up in the corner there, we have roughly $350 per unit surplus. 334 units, it's going to be about 120 grand. That's why I backed it down to 100, and it might be a little bit below that, but that's kind of how this whole project would roll out. This is using not your levy rate that's in this, that is currently published, it's using the levy rate that you would have had without the governor's money, because they do two calculations. Yeah. Yes, for this individual project.
For the whole 334.
Yes, for this individual. Now remember, this is one project among many. You're going to have others. When we did the comprehensive, the full study, you had some winners, some losers, and they all balance out. You need winners to balance out the losers. So don't think this is just woohoo surplus money we get to spend. It's got another purpose that's going to be baked into the whole plan for your comp plan. So I don't want you thinking that you got this extra money found, because there are going to be scenarios where they're negative, and they're still going to be a recommended go forward, because there's more alternative, there's more important things than just the numbers. So,
Okay, so Mayor, not to get into the weeds too much, so if you have several subdivisions going on, say, all directions, so say you have 1,000 homes going in.
Yeah.
In whatever, 2 square miles or whatever, then that impact is going to affect cost much more, as far as from infrastructure, roads,
Right,
et cetera.
right.
Okay?
yes,
Okay.
yes, and that general
I guess
cost is
what I'm
already in
getting at
there.
it, when you have more homes or whatever going into a small area, that's going to impact the city, in your opinion, in a negative way?
It depends on where the homes are. That's what's going to, that to me is going to be a bigger determinant. What homes, what kind of homes? Are we talking about dwelling units that are really fourplexes? Or are we talking about single-family homes? Because they're also going to have a different calculation. Each one is going to have different calculations that are all going to be new and unique for whatever you're
I'm
looking
not
at.
speaking for the fellow council, but my thing is mainly to infill rather than sprawl.
And infill is more profitable than sprawl, without a doubt. That was what we determined on our original study by running along corridors, your major transportation corridors, especially with infill. That is more successful than further away. And you can see, like, I mean, I just did a back of the envelope for police and fire. They would probably say, you're nuts. It's going to cost us a lot more to service something that's further out because it's taking an entire unit out of service. So, and there's calls for service that are affected by that. So without, getting too into the weeds here, and we can. I mean, that's the nice thing is we can get more and more complex as we move along if you really like it. But remember, the whole point of this is really to get informed decision-making tools, and this is just one of them. And so that's what we're trying to get at. So that's the current, using your 2021 current budget that we're living under, your levy rate we would be living under without the governor's money, and your property values that are kind of current. So it's a little bit of arbitrage going in there. What we can do is we can look under this entire scenario using the 389 legislation and how it would affect you. Now, all that really changes is because we know your annexation new construction number to a pretty fair amount of accuracy. I think Doug could validate, but I think we're pretty close on that. We know we can have a pretty good estimate of what your budget would be, so we can recalculate your numbers with this new legislation. Everything remains the same, but the impact goes down to about 30,000. It's the same spots on the matrix for the values for the homes. What happens though is your levy rate drops a full point from 0.0061 to 0.0051 because of now you've caught up with that, the two parcels and the property values being in sync. So now you're at a $33,000 profit, take 20 to 30,000 off of that, and you're at marginal. So if I was looking at this, I still wouldn't say, don't do it, because I think new home construction right now in the valley is really important because that's one of the reasons why prices are skyrocketing is there's no inventory and more demand than we can support. So I would still recommend if I was on your staff that we still move forward on something like this, even if it's close to break even or even possibly a little bit less, because it solves your overall good. And that's kind of what we're trying to get to. So let me see where I'm at here. Yeah, and I already mentioned the aspect of positives and negatives balancing out so that you're not just making one decision on one project, because that is really important. This one may be a surplus, you may have a detriment, but you want to do them all with a master plan. One of the things I thought of doing, and I might actually talk to your staff, is taking your existing projects in your current inventory and valuing those out and look at them in mass as a bigger scope so that you can say, yeah, there's winners and losers. And at the end of the day, under this new legislation, if things happen the way they think they are going to next year, how would that impact us? I think that might be valuable as an exercise when we're talking about all of this. But for the most part, that's how this works. I'm willing to stand for questions, and Doug's going to be up in just a minute to explain his additional. I know this is the wrong slide because Doug was supposed to be.
Well, it's been helpful. I'm going to pause. Council, do you have any questions? Yes.
I've got a few, but
Okay.
I won't get into the weeds like you said. The model, this tool that you're talking about, is it something you created or something you collaborated with other jurisdictions to create?
So I created this tool specifically for Nampa. The analysis tool is the one-off is the one we did. We've done fiscal analysis studies for other jurisdictions with the bigger study that comes with a report and gives you alternatives and what your comprehensive plan is going to look like. We've done those in the past, and that's where we get a lot of our statistical information that I've been using for variable cost and for other things. Is the math that we've created for all these other areas. It's usually pretty similar. I mean, the variable cost between fire, police, and some of these other areas is typically pretty consistent. So we're comfortable with those numbers. And it's the additional impact is really location specific. It is really down to your city, your community, and how you respond to events.
The city of Eagle would be different than the city of Nampa.
Absolutely.
In conversation last week with a developer and his team that I met with, Eagle came up as a topic because they have an in-house person that is developing something very similar to this. So I didn't know if you had been collaborating with them, had any conversations with
Nope,
them.
haven't spoke to anyone at Eagle.
To share how they would approach their analysis, which is basically, again, an impact analysis, obviously, and a cost of service is what we've been trying to arrive at.
Sure.
What makes sense from our standpoint of what we would try to get behind and support versus something that we should maybe put the brakes on and, for lack of a better term, pause. But going forward, do you think this tool that you're creating, especially with planning and zoning and our economic development staff, you think you'd be able to look at these type of projects that are coming forward, this council, in advance of it reaching our, packets with a recommendation of favorable or non-favorable? Is that what this?
That's what the intent behind this is, to get you guys information as just one piece of recommended, it's a fiscal impact analysis. A lot of times legislation requires something like that. This is just another piece that would go along this. And many times electeds will say, it has a fiscal cost, I don't care. This is important to me and my constituents, we're moving forward. So yes, but that would be the plan, is that you would have one of these, it would look like the sheets that I just showed you. You'd have something similar that would come and say, here is what the calculations came out to be. And it would be, they have to collaborate with some of your department heads when these, especially when they get more complex. Smaller ones, not so much, but more complex residential developments or a big commercial project. There is still some nuances that you have to kind of understand how the thing works to
You're
make it.
approaching both sides of the residential, commercial, industrial.
Correct.
Basically, the whole gamut.
The whole-
This would be able to take care of for us.
Exactly.
I think from a council perspective, myself included, I think that's the guesswork that you're kind of helping us eliminate. Because that's where it becomes an issue of, do we really want this? Is it more of a personal judgment call versus, the type of information that we really need to make a valid decision based on?
Right.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and like I said, you have to remember, and that's why if we were to take all of your projects, for instance, and put them into a model, you're going to have some that are very successful and very profitable for the city, but that doesn't mean you just want to pick, because you need your balance between commercial and residential. And that has to always be one of your criteria when you're looking at all these, is that you're not out of balance one way or the other, because yes, you may have a lot of positive, successful ones and you pick all of those, but the commercial doesn't show up or residential doesn't show up because you ignored it, so.
And as Councilman Bruner mentioned, the infill projects make total sense because it's already a service area.
Exactly.
And the utilities are closer, if not already in front of those type of developments. That
Yeah.
makes total sense. But does your model take into consideration, I didn't hear, I assume that it does, the comp plan approach to what's already been a directive, kind of a given to certain areas? Does it follow that line of logic for multifamily housing as an example?
Not necessarily on the one-off. That would have been more in the big study that we did. That was really more focused on your comp plan and all of your uses. So we're not talking about changing a use from one use to another. We're talking about this project in this location and how does the math work on that? So because a lot of times these come with a lot of conditions, and so that's not what we're trying to focus on.
That's what, Mayor, and again, I'll stop now, but that's kind of what is brought before us for consideration, is it meets the comp plan. It meets the density. It's approved by planning and zoning. It's being presented to us as positive, 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 and then we pause it because maybe it doesn't have the cost of service study done for it properly. And so if that extra key is added, then that gives us the validation we need to make a proper decision.
Exactly. That piece should be along with all of your other approvals that came through and recommendations that came through.
Are there any other questions for Ozzy at this time? Ozzy, thank you. I really appreciate this information. And like Ozzy said, this is a tool, right? And we're going to have a lot of other things to consider when we're considering growth and what we approve and what we don't approve. You know, there's a question that came to my mind while you're talking. Does Nampa want to be a bedroom community? Right? And that's a decision that whether you make a decision or don't make a decision, it will become that or not based on our decisions, the one-off decisions that continually happen. Every decision we make is taking our city in a certain direction. And I think right now, while we have tremendous growth, we need to seriously weigh where are we going and what are we becoming? Are we becoming what we want to become? And I think that's just something for us all to think about and at some point to have, I think, a broader discussion. Where do we want to, you know, what do we want to become? I know our citizens are saying we don't want to lose who we are, right? As a community, we don't want to lose the core values that we have and what we love about Nampa. I've also heard it said, though, that, and you guys have maybe heard me say this, but stopping growth is like putting your hand under a waterfall thinking you're going to stop it. Because if we totally stopped growth, the financial impact to our city could be devastating. Just certain, I had a recent conversation at the Chamber of Commerce board meeting and listening to some title companies. You've got developments that began a long time ago that are in process that if we were to stop, it could put some people in a very, very difficult financial situation. And so that's why, for me, this discussion is, it's very important because we can't just take a broad swiping approach to it. It's like taking a scapular, or whatever, X-Acto knife, and really thinking about what we do. And I don't have all the answers. I do feel like with the commercial growth adds to the tax base, and it's positive because it's jobs. Although right now we know that we're dealing with a workforce shortage. You've got to have people. So I don't know the answer. One thing I will say just for those listening is that one of our challenges, and we had this discussion this morning with staff, why is it that our budget is so tight? And I have to say, candidly, and I think you guys are all aware of it, when we did the Urban Renewal District, and it takes us from downtown Nampa all the way out Nampa-Caldwell Boulevard, across Karcher, over the freeway to Treasure Valley Marketplace and beyond, that decision, new growth, and especially our industrial area, which is great. I think it's good for the city because it brings good jobs. None of that tax revenue comes into the city of Nampa. That tax revenue goes to urban renewal. That's something we inherited, and it's something that we cannot fix quickly. Unfortunately, I will say, though, if the legislature cuts our ability to bring that revenue back into the city, it will perpetuate a budget challenge for us.
Well, the legislation already does that.
It does.
It lowers it to 80% when it comes over. So there's already a negative impact from that. So
There's already, but if it goes further, which
Right.
is what the thought was, it becomes really negative. And that's what I think it's so important for our legislature to understand is what that does to a community, especially like Nampa. We did not experience the growth at the pace that, let's say, Meridian did and Boise before them until now. The reason why this is really problematic for us this year is this is the first year that we would have hit that 8%.
the 8% cap is the determining factor.
And of
in
all
this.
years, it's the year that we're transitioning to a fire district, and it's the year that this legislation's going into place for the city of Nampa. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, so.
Well, if you're okay, I'm going to step down and let Doug, or
That'd
you
be
want to do
great.
from your spot?
So Doug, are you going to take us into the next action item on the agenda, which is the budget cap and tax revenues?
Yes.
Okay, so at this point,
Mayor,
yes,
can we ask Doug about this?
yes.
What your opinion is on this,
Yes.
on this piece, just real quick?
I will start off with that. We're stepping through a minefield here. And one of the
most sure courses to hitting a landmine is avoiding the facts. Fact-based decision-making is really critical in moving forward. OSSI has given a tool for us to estimate the impact of any given development. It may not be a perfect tool, but it adds more than just seat of the pants estimation of what a traffic pattern is going to do or what the impact is on a school. This will talk more about what the financial impact is to the city. I want to dig into this a little more. I remember the first presentation you did on this about 1.5 years ago, I think. And any type of analysis like this is based on a set of assumptions. And some of the assumptions are easily understood, some are more difficult. But they are assumptions that are necessary to make a tool like this. So it's fact-based decision-making, but it also assumes certain things. And one of the things I want to do is dig into a couple of the assumptions, because it assumes rates, it assumes cost of product, it assumes valuation estimates. But I think overall, this is a much better tool to use rather than just relying on intuition, seat of the pants. Now, there's something to be said for this council and the experience you have. You've been doing this for a while. You've seen the growth. You know the impacts. Many times the experience factor is just as important as the fact-based portion, but you put the two together and you can make a very good decision. So I like the tool. I like what it's giving you. And I think the more you actually use it, you could probably help refine it to get the exact answers you're looking for, because tools like this tend to, as you use them, you discover the strengths and the weaknesses, and then you can make changes with OSSI, and they become actually a even more powerful tool down the road. Let me move on here a little bit.
Do you want to go to the front and face us? That might be good. And as you go, I just want to recognize Representative Ben Adams is here. And thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I've appreciated Representative Adams has made the effort to reach out to us as a city and to do a good job of serving us. And thank you for your willingness to do that. It's greatly appreciated. Yeah, thank you. Voice of reason in the House. Yeah, I know. Thank you. So this is moving to our last action item on the agenda this evening, and it isn't, this could be an action item, because really the intent of the discussion that Doug is going to lead us through is, as we are budgeting, we need to know how to budget as a city. And so Doug's going to walk us through some numbers, and then we can talk at the conclusion.
Mayor, if I just, before Doug starts things, question. So remember, the report by OSSI was an action item? Because my question is, are we accepting what he has put before us to utilize this in the future? Are we taking a vote on that?
We can. I always put action item just in case there was a decision to do so. Okay. We were planning on using the tool and bringing it forward unless council says no. So you're welcome.
Legal, we don't need a vote then on that at this point? Okay, yeah. Thanks. Thanks for the
clarification. Good question.
Okay, so House Bill 389 was an attempt by the legislature to address the growing property tax issue across the state. I applaud their desire to address it, and the significant effort was put in. But I think what we're seeing here is the law of unintended consequences. What they intended to do, reality probably won't happen, and you may have some actually very negative impacts. So, and also along the law of unintended consequences, I wanted to address one other aspect of what OSSI was talking about in regard to your responsibility as counselors. And what the mayor addressed as what's the right choice, to grow or not to grow. I think that, and the reason I like what OSSI's putting forward is it gives you a tool to help make some fact-based decisions. Because making a bad decision can be as much worse than making no decision at all. But if you look at, let's say, supply side economics, if you decide that you want to stop growth, in the face of extreme demand, what happens to the value of homes? They're going to go up by their own weight. On the other side of the coin, if you approve every single project that's out there, you end up with sprawl, economic problems, not the ability to not meet the demands of the citizens. So somewhere in the middle, there's got to be a balance, and that's why I like a tool to help guide that. House Bill 389 has several challenges to it. The 8% limiting cap, underneath that, all the items underneath that are your 3% statutory limit, your new construction, your foregone, they all have to fit within that 8% cap. Now, we've never, until these last couple of years, even come close to the 8% cap. Last year, we probably would have gotten, if we'd have taken the 3%, you would have gotten to about 6, maybe 7%, if you'd taken the full 3%. We didn't. But your new construction revenues have been growing steadily, and new construction revenues are not new taxes, they are taxes on new property, so it's not an increase. But they've been growing very steadily for the last 4 or 5 years. I think 4 years ago, they were about $800,000. 3 years ago, they were 1.4. Last year, 1.7. This year, we'll talk into that, but they would have been 3.5 with Amazon. And based on what we're seeing on the current plans in the docket, our new construction next year will probably be very similar to what we had this year, even though we don't have an Amazon because there's so many new homes being built. Now, the new construction is also limited to 90%. So the theory is they take the new construction, they take 90% of it, we get to keep it, they take that 10%, put it in a bucket, and use that to reduce the valuation or the tax assessment to other residences or other properties in the area or in the state, as the case may be. The problem with that is that you're taking new construction dollars away from funding new construction growth. So you're putting the onus back on citizens to pay for new, growth through other means other than the one intended, which is the new construction. You're actually, an unintended consequence is we may be forced to go down a path we haven't done in the past, which would be to use all or part of the 3% because the funds to fund the funds available to us in the past to cover new growth are no longer available. I'll get to that in a second, but the challenges involved with it is that the new construction levy is not available till the 4th Monday in July. We have our council meetings with you all on the 12th and the 13th. The budget will be wrapped up in late June, and we'll have our public hearing on August 16th. So this is the take a stab at it method, which means that we have to guess what the rates are going to be. If we guess too low, we're leaving money on the table because after the public hearing, we can't go up. We're set where it's at. We literally could be losing money and incurring the costs of growth without getting the revenue of the growth. Sorry, I should have made this a little bigger. Right now, I want to start kind of in a reverse order. The 8% budget limit for us is an easily calculable number. I know what our base is. I know what 8% is. It's $3,493,000 is what we could take. The next line down is our estimated new construction as of 2 weeks ago, 3.6 million, almost 3.7. So I'm already losing $157,000 between the two. I cannot take the $3,650,000 because of the 8% limit. That money's gone. There's no way I can recover that. The statutory limit is $1,310,000. So our total budget capacity could have been nearly $5 million. Instead, if you go all the way down to the bottom of the column below the $3.4 million, we're losing budget capacity of 1.5. Now, we've rarely taken the 3%, so it's not a severe issue to us. But if you take and look at the impact of what using the levy rate from the fourth Monday in July would be, that takes the new construction down to, let's go to two steps. So on 90% where it says $365,000, if I were to use last year's rate against this year's new construction, I'd only lose $365,000. We would only lose $365,000. But when I replace that with an estimated rate, that loss goes down to $1.1 million. That's new construction monies that we do not have now to pay for the new growth. That's how much they're going to take away, given what I know right now. This is an estimate I got from Steve Onifray, and he's pretty good about this. So our net remaining revenues would be $2.589 million from new construction. So out of that, we have to make a choice on how we proceed. I know that I'm going to be down $1,061,000. I can never get back to the 3.65 no matter what I do, but I can get back to the $3.493 million. And this is where the law of unintended consequences comes in with what the state legislature tried to do. By limiting our capacity to use our new growth to pay for new growth, that leaves us only one option. If we take a portion of the 3% to offset the loss, we are not creating a tax increase for the citizens. They take away $1,100,000 on one side, we add it back over here, the net impact is exactly zero. There is no tax increase from that to the citizens of Nampa. You're losing it on one side because they're taking it away, and we're adding it back. We would like to, if you don't add it back, that's where we come into challenges. Because then we would be incurring all of the costs of revenues, but not the revenues themselves. So our capacity to fund new police, our capacity to fund new streets, our capacity to fund everything would begin to be degraded. Every budget cycle we went through, we would lose that capacity. Now, over the next 3 years, we have a little bit of a window for planning. Because of the way the law is written, the existing law, not the current law, our base would start with the highest tax base of the last 3 years. That's state law. It's been that way for forever, at least since 2016, probably prior. So as we go forward for the next 3 years, we could continue to use the highest base of the last 3 years for determining our 8%. That gives us a short window of opportunity. How long has the city been around? 100 years, right? 130? All right. So 3 years isn't a long time, but it does give us the opportunity that while we are losing the fire department, that decreases our base, I don't have to recognize that decrease in the base until our fourth tax year out. So I have some room to maneuver. The critical thing to understand from a finance perspective is that when we do fall off that cliff and we lose that base, we're not going to get it back. Whatever we can do now to preserve our purchasing power in terms of meeting the needs of the citizen, of the citizens in safety and streets, by preserving our base is going to pay dividends down the road. What I mean by that is, if you choose, now in the past, being very conservative has served this council and city very well, very well. It's given us the capacity to tangle with the state legislature and do so on the righteous, firm ground that we're preaching what we're preaching and we're living what we preach. But if we continue down the road and say we only take the new construction and don't take new revenues, don't take any of the 3%, every project you approve will come likely at a scenario where the cost might be greater than the revenue we receive from it. On the other hand, if we do take a portion of and my recommendation is you take a portion of the 3%, that gets you back up to flat, not a tax increase. Again, it is not a tax increase to do this. It's just it's a shell game. You're washing one hand with the other because of the way the legislation's written. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so my understanding is it's 8%.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is, you can give us the figure.
Yep.
We're so good at these, but there's no way we could take the full 3% without being over the 8% if we're taking all the new construction that we can, correct?
If they use the current rate, yes, but if they use the advanced rate on July 4th, we go from $3.6 million down to $2.5 million. Our cap is still $3.5 million. That doesn't change. So I can take new construction, or I can take the 3% up to the differential between the 2.5 million and the 3.4 million.
And that, I guess that
Which
would,
is
and
less.
that normally would be about the 3%.
Well, it's about 2.
Less than 3%.
It's less than 3.
So, because before we were figuring a couple of weeks ago, I was figuring we can only take about 0.5% to that point. So what you're saying, and I don't want to put words in your
No,
mouth,
you're fine.
What I'm hearing is, it's important to keep this base. We have a window of 4 years or whatever the
Right.
case might be. So what you're saying is, it's important for us to keep that base as high as we possibly can.
Right, but not to the extent of increasing somebody's taxes. It's actually preserving what we've got right now. It's preserving the base. Because what I'm proposing, let's say next year it's different and we only lose $400,000. Then unless we have an urgent need, other words, then my recommendation is you take at least the percentage to recover that $400,000. Anything greater would be, or could be, a tax increase, and anything less would be us in a situation where we are now paying more for our services than we're getting for revenues to cover them. So, let me open up something real quick here on my laptop. Because I wanted to end very quickly. This is what I did the same thing Ozzy did. It goes away. So this is what I was saying. If we take the redistributed tax from HB 389 right now is likely $1,061,000. If we add back in a portion of the 3%, which is a little over 2, you get to a net change of 0. That's what I mean. There's no change to it. But what happens really if we don't do it? And these, I just had one of my staff come to me today and announce that one of our key people in UB was leaving the city. Going for a very good paying job outside a city, not to another municipality, but outside the city. We couldn't even come close to matching it, so we unfortunately had to wish this particular individual the best of luck. But that's not a solitary case right now. Because of the wage pressures, because of the limited job market, we are losing people at a fairly accelerated rate, and it's very difficult to replace them. And every time we have to replace somebody, we throw our entire wage structure out of whack, because sometimes we have to hire them greater than what the person left is, the person who left was earning. And we're in that circumstance because we are conservative, and that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And in most cases, it's very desirable. But in this job market right now, we have put ourselves, one of the unintended side effects of this position is that we're not paying what our competitors are paying. We're losing staff. We're losing our capacity to serve the city and to serve you. It's not dangerous right now, but it's going to continue, and it will probably get worse. So if we decide that we want to be more conservative, and this is, council, I follow your will. This is just the finance person speaking. But if we go down the road and say, we don't want to raise any of the 3%, we will continue to lose more people. One of the questions I had asked this morning, the mayor referred to, this was from a very, very stable member of our employment force, a very dedicated person. He looked at me and said, when are you going to stop asking us to do more with less? And that was a direct quote. Because every time I go in and say, I need you to cut it a little bit, need a little bit tighter. We're at the point now where doing more with less is not possible, because we're having challenges with Meridian looking at the high quality of our employees and saying, well, let's go down there, or other places. It's not part of life. To a certain extent, you expect that.
It's tough, though,
Yeah.
when it's some of our lower paid positions and average paid positions that we have to run the city.
Yep.
And we can't retain them. And that's where we are today, and we just are finishing our wage equity piece, thinking that we're getting within range. And then we've got, neighboring cities doing, 4 to 6%, high increases. We can't afford to do that. We just need to be able to run the city.
That's exactly it.
Got to run the city.
So my request is that we be allowed to budget up to the 8% cap, knowing that that will not generate a tax increase, but it will allow us to meet some of the needs we're dealing with without putting us further behind. But as always, I defer to the will of the council, and I can build a budget off of a dime and a pair of matchsticks. It might not look very good, but you'll be able to be warm for a couple minutes. So at any rate, that's the presentation. What questions can I answer you?
Councilman Bauer, did you have a question? Nope. Okay. Councilman Haverfield, do you have any questions? I'm sorry, I'm just going down the line.
For the sake of our House representative that's here tonight, thank you for being here. For 7, almost 8 years now, I've been serving on this council with a desire to be fiscally responsible to our community, to lower the taxes, to lower the levy rate. And it bothered me greatly when I heard that our mayor and chief of staff was treated that they were the way that they were when they came to speak to your house. It's sad because we're all in this for the same reason, be fiscally responsible to our community, to try to curb the taxes. When I was on council, or first got on council, our levy rate was the highest in the state. Now it's not. We've done the yeoman's work of trying to take no increase in our budgets each year to be responsible to our community. This is a cooperative effort, and I hope you understand, and I appreciate your being here, so you can take the message back to the House that we need to be a part of the conversation. We just can't receive the impact of the decisions that are made at the state level and not include the cities in the conversation. So that's the only thing that I have to say. It bothers me greatly that now we are looking at having to increase our budgets to be able to get that baseline to where it needs to be, because that's counter to where we've been the last 7 to 8 years. But going forward, it's a new paradigm that's being forced on us. And some tough decisions for me will be to raise those rates as presented to us tonight, because it's counter to what we've tried to do for the last 8 years. So, but I appreciate you, Mayor. I appreciate this council and Doug, all that you've done to prepare us for what's coming ahead. But it's an open conversation, I think it sounds like, and I'll stop.
Any other comments? I do want to say, I forgot to recognize, and it's a little out of place at the moment, but thank you to our Planning and Zoning Commission members that have come tonight. You've sat in a number of community members, Jay, and then a number of others. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. Thank you for listening. We truly want to hear from you. It's important, because I know how it feels when we're not listened to. And I will say, though, that some of the information that we have, because we have a lot of information that we're taking in, like Ozzie said, this is one tool, but we're looking at a lot of different information and trying to make decisions. And we try to take all that information in and make the best decision we can. The good news with this budget that Doug is talking about, and I'm kind of shifting gears back to Doug in his presentation, is we would still, even if we took part of the 3%, we're still taking less than new construction. The challenge is it makes it look like, and that makes it look like we're raising taxes when we're not. We would be at 0 tax increase. If there were no legislation at all, we would be at 0. And it'll still be 0 increase to taxes, but it makes it look like we're increasing taxes. And that's the unfortunate part, because it makes us as municipalities look bad. But I will say we have the services that we have to provide. And we're really mindful, even on our water rates and our water, our wastewater, irrigation, when you look at the rates and trying to figure out how to fund streets in environment that we're in and stormwater that there is no funding for because the city of Nampa funds all of that. Just trying to find the balance in all of it's really interesting. So it's complex, it's not easy, but we're trying to do the best job we can. So really the ask tonight as we step into budget is, do we have the okay with council to go ahead and plan a budget around the 8% capacity that we have?
And keep in mind, you mentioned savings. The 8% cap is 3.5 million. New construction a couple of weeks ago was $3,650,000, so we're already $157,000 below the cap. That money will go back in. We'll be taxing less than we should normally receive.
And that could go up from there. So we're
probably will.
absolutely less than the new construction.
Jacob.
Mayor, Doug, I campaigned very, very hard in my election and knocked on a lot of doors, thousands. And I made a commitment that I would not take the full 3%. I made that promise to a lot of people. So I didn't say,
Understand?
I didn't say what number, but that's just kind of the commitment I made. I think 2 years ago with council, last year was different with COVID, but what were we 2 years ago? Was it a 2%?
Well,
We were 1% for roads. is what we
Well,
were.
3 years ago, you were at 2.75%. 2 years ago, you were at 2%. Last year, it was 0. And
This year was
zero.
proposed to be zero.
Zero, right.
Our goal this
We
year is
proposed
zero. It's
to do
just the
zero twice.
legislation makes it look like.
So to put that in perspective, as the mayor's indicated in the past, we, over the last 10 to 12 years as a city, have not taken, I think, $6.5 million in tax increases we could have taken, and they weren't. So they were left on
Mayor,
the table.
we won't be battling over foregone this year, though.
No.
Right.
Right.
And I just want you to know I won't vote on the full 3.
I don't think we're going to get to the 3%. In fact, I know we're not going to. We'll be less than 3. Around, if I took the full amount, it's around, the last time I did the calculation was 2.1. It might be 2.2, but it definitely will not be 3. There's no way we can get there because of the 8% cap.
I'd be favorable with that number, but not close to 3.
Got it.
Councilman Haverfield?
Mayor Kling.
Oh,
Oops.
yes. Jean, we welcome your
Hey,
question.
guys. I'm sorry that I can't be there in person, but I just want to say how much I appreciate all of the hard work on this. It was an incredibly quick turnaround, and I think this city is doing their residents proud by all the due diligence. I think one of the concerns for me as well is that we have significant deferred maintenance. And I think, Doug, every time budget comes forward, we see how much each department is, asking for, and then what's realistic, and then how much deferred maintenance that adds. And I think that's something our residents really need to understand is the cost of all of that deferred maintenance. And how do we balance that as you build a budget? I think you said out of a matchstick. We have to start having some of those conversations that the reality of this, if growth doesn't fully pay for growth or come close, we really do have other areas that are hit significantly. And it's a balancing act. And I'm really grateful to all of you who are leaning in to do this hard work and give us this really important information. But the deferred maintenance really concerns me.
I think in a recent meeting with Brian Foster, we reviewed that the current path of deferred maintenance is accelerating. Every year we're adding to it. Right now, I think we're plus or minus a couple $100,000. We're 2 million, maybe a little more. But each year it's accelerating. It's adding about $500,000 a year to that bucket of what we're not doing. So it is a growing bucket. And this is, again, you can be fiscally responsible for a long time. But what we used to call in the grocery industry, if you cut into the bone and cut past the fat, then you're being a little too conservative. And I don't think anybody in the council here has ever gone to the point of cutting into the bone, but the bone may be coming up to meet us because of our demands are growing. It may just, the cuts may be shallower, but the bone is we're getting leaner. We have less to cut. So it's just, we rely on your council to figure out where we're going. But the deferred maintenance will not go away. Now, I need to be clear. I don't want any, I've built my reputation on being open and honest and transparent with you, and I want to continue that. There are aspects of the budget which are going very good for us this year, which weren't entirely expected, but that helps us deal with the deferred maintenance. Shared sales tax revenues are up. They're up noticeably. But that doesn't solve the problem. It's rather a symptom of growth. We're seeing people that are, more people in the state, they're buying more, we're getting more sales taxes, and we need that to help deal with the deferred revenue. So I'm not painting a picture of doom and gloom, but I am saying that if we take the portion of the 3%, we can keep up with the expenses we're incurring and not continue to add to the deferred maintenance. Does that make sense?
Councilman Haverfield.
Well, I won't belabor the point. I concur with what Jacob had to say as far as some increase, but not the full 3. But foregone's a non-starter for me. The money that we've saved is taxes that people haven't had to pay.
Right.
And so I'm not going to go down that path. Wouldn't support foregone. So that's just a personal preference.
And personally, I agree with that as well. The only intent we thought about using foregone was to use it once the GO bond was paid off, but now that's limited. But not a normal course. Although there are circumstances where the city told, or the county told me I could use foregone in this circumstance to boost us up a little bit, but I didn't even entertain the discussion.
Doug, thank you for all your
But certainly.
Mayor, there again, as I said last council meeting for another discussion, I think it was a council meeting, I'd still want the subject matter of what's potentially happening with this infrastructure money from the feds.
Okay, so last week we received our first tranche of $8.755 million. We got that in the bank. I am in the process of opening a new account to put it in there. Like I told you, my name is personally attached to this money, so I'm very particular about how it's going to get spent with the documentation. But we're not going to build any of it into the budget right now until we know exactly what we want to use it for. I'm putting it in the bucket, and then we'll study how can we best use this. I know there's a tremendous demand for water or wastewater needs. That's probably one of the first things we'll look at. But I got to get a little bit past this budget problem, and then I can start digging into how we can exactly spend that. But nothing's going to be budgeted until we meet and discuss with you.
So then that clarification, Mayor, if I may. So this 8 point whatever, this is not part of the projected 19.8 million?
It is.
It is.
We were supposed to get it in two $10 million chunks, but they may have changed it. I don't know.
So this is maybe 50% of the total amount.
I know I'll get another amount next May, but I don't know if it's going to be 8.7 again or if it's going to be all the way back up to 20
And that will
million.
be coming before council eventually as far as how we
Yes.
have a vote on how that money is to be utilized?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
We're not going to spend it without, there's too much value in that money to spend it without appropriate discussion.
Once we get through the budget process, and actually currently, Public Works is doing the research, we're doing the research regarding the guidelines. There's some new guidelines out regarding lead remediation in communities to where, and the EPA is really encouraging this, where lead into the household, to where you could have grants to help people offset the lead pipes going into old homes. There are a lot of guidelines and there are different uses. We're going to take those all into consideration and we will be bringing to council a packet of options. But we are not going to move forward on anything until it comes to city council and it'll be well-researched. We'll have our Public Works team present, which we have a great team, and it'll be following the guidelines. And it'll be looking at, and in the meantime, I think we will confirm what we anticipate the full amount to be over the 4 years for spend, so we can have a very comprehensive, in-depth look to make a good decision.
There again, that's to be spent through 2026.
2024.
I'm sorry.
December
where did I get
31st.
26. I was thinking of maybe
Yeah,
the
so
sunset.
that's why we have a little bit of time.
Sunsetting of one of the urban renewal districts, okay.
So we have a little bit of time. That's why I want to focus on the budget now and then come back and visit this.
And Mayor, I always have a facetious comment, so I think we should really lobby the Meridian Council that there's a moratorium on hiring any more of Nampa.
And Boise,
Yeah, it's a challenge. It really is.
As we wink and smile, right.
I see he's running again, so,
He's taking notes. All right.
Mayor and Council, thank you very much.
So do we have the okay to move forward with our budget as we're anticipating? As long as we have your nod, we don't need it, as long as we feel like we're okay, because you're going to actually vote on the budget later, so, okay?
I'm a virtual nod, yes.
Thank you, Jean. Okay, that is the end of our new business items tonight. We do have an executive session. So before we have the motion to adjourn, thank you to all of you that were patient sitting in and listening tonight. We welcome input. You're always welcome to reach out to the mayor's office and share your input. Corey, who answers the phone, is going to take that down and get answers and get back to you if you have questions. So thank you for joining us tonight. So at this time, I would stand for a motion to adjourn into executive